Hello. Now, before I start this video, I would like to be educated. So, could you guys please go into the comments and talk to me about...
Stop right there, criminal scum!
Now, you see, what I was about to do right there was make a really edgy, unfunny joke. However, that isn't really the problem with it. The problem with it was the fact that I was fearful that it would date the video.
Oh, brother, this guy...
Alright, look, I don't know any other better way of starting this video. Except maybe... Now, what I've just presented to you guys is a game called F.E.A.R, an action FPS that was developed by Monolith Studios and released in 2010. And released in 2010. You see, you play as the Point Man, and you're assigned with killing Paxton Fettel, a guy who's lost his fucking mind and has started to eat people, as well as having to deal with a ghost called Alma, who pesters you throughout the game. See, F.E.A.R is lauded for its intense combat and impressive AI, and is considered to be one of the best games of its genre. Or at least that's what all those losers have to say. Why listen to those game journalist bozos when you can listen to me, Moonthony Montano here, who is a real reviewer with 10 times more experience than all those other losers. I mean, look at all these videos. So, what do I have to say about F.E.A.R? It's good. I can't even pretend. It's fucking awesome. F.E.A.R is one of the first video games I ever played that made me recognize that there's a difference between visual fidelity and good art direction. If you want to see what I mean, go onto YouTube, type in a random video game, and then type in Unreal Engine 5 Remake at the end of it. And you will be met with a cavalcade of videos where people make these terrible concepts, and they're usually laden with shitty animations, enough bloom to turn you into Ray Charles, and more often than not, zero actual gameplay. Now, it's not that these assets are bad, or that the engine that is being used is bad, it's that these people are very clearly just mashing different assets together and making zero effort to have a cohesive vision. Which is why it's so cool to me when I look at even the simplest office layout in F.E.A.R, and I can clearly feel the atmosphere they have set up. And a pretty major reason for this is the lighting. See, unlike a lot of other games, where the lighting is usually baked into the scene to help save on performance, the lighting in F.E.A.R is all done in real time, which means that you can shoot at a lamp on the ceiling, and you can see it swinging around, and the shadows will stay consistent. And here are some other examples, like this isolated printer off in its own corner, or the soft blue glow coming from this computer. It really gives these environments a sense of abandonment and isolation, and it helps make the player catch things that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to on their own. But you see, fancy lights are not all that F.E.A.R has, because, my god, the effects are amazing. You see, on a base level, you just have the environment which is filled with physics objects like books, chairs, and other shit as you walk around, and it all rustles and falls over. And as a guy that likes the funny physics, this just activates the monkey part of my brain. But when you get into a gunfight, oh my god, the room just explodes with particles, like dust and paper getting kicked up into the air, bullet holes puckering the wall as you fire at the enemy, blood spewing as like you shoot into them. It's amazing. These gunfights are also majorly enhanced by the weapon sound effects and animations. All of these elements combine to make weapons that feel and sound insanely powerful, especially on the common occasion where you turn an enemy into Gibbs. When you combine this with the slow motion, you feel like you're right in an action movie, which was the intent. You see, the developers often talked about how they were inspired by action movies like Hard Boiled and The Matrix, and they wanted to translate that feeling into a video game. And as you could see, I would say they succeeded. However, a good combat system is only as good as the enemies you fight against, and F.E.A.R also excels in this area. You see, to anyone that's even put a modicum of research into this game, they will know that its AI is the thing that it's most widely talked about, due to them considered still being nearly unmatched even after all these years. You see, the actions that these enemies take are fantastic, and they're far from like the common, zombie type enemy that just mindlessly runs towards you. They will flank you, they'll knock over shelves to create cover, hop through windows and crawl into spaces if they think that they can get the flank on you. When damaged, they'll try to limp away, and when they're few in number, they like to tighten up into groups. You get the picture. I can give you an endless list of examples. However, in order for me to really tell you why this works so well, I'm gonna have to talk to you guys about an experience I had with a Halo Infinite designer. I was lucky enough to be able to attend a lecture that had a Halo Infinite world designer, and his job was basically helping design anything that wasn't a linear level or an outpost. And there was a particular thing that really stuck with me when I asked him the question of if he knew what abilities the players had when he was making the levels. And he replied that he knew what the abilities were, but he didn't really know how any of them worked. As in, he knew that the game had a grappling hook, but he didn't know how far it could go, how fast the grapple hook was, if it zipped the player just to the position, or if it was more physics-based and he could move himself with it. A particular memory that stuck out to him was that he made this entire section, and he intended it to be a platforming challenge for the player, and then he saw people skipping it entirely using the grappling hook. Now, while I don't think level skipping is inherently bad with these mechanics, it's pretty clear that there was miscommunication between the devs and that it damaged aspects of the game. Now, some of you are probably sitting here and thinking, what does any of this have to do with the fucking spook bitch game? And my retort to that is that F.E.A.R is a great case of the opposite. Again, to anyone that has investigated this game's development history, they know that the AI and level designers decided to take some notes from Germany and Sweden by collaborating together. You see, those guys worked together to make sure that the enemies and the levels all complemented each other to the fullest extent. Environments are often filled with multiple pathways for the enemy to navigate and confuse you, and special objects are usually littered around so the enemy can either make cover or impede your progress. This really helps to create an enemy that feels as if it's worthy of facing you, rather than some useless fodder that you just get rid of. However, these soldiers are not the only threats you're going to have to face. You are also going to have to face some supernatural threats. Now, I know you've probably caught on to this by now, but F.E.A.R isn't just an action game, it's also a horror game. However, this aspect, I feel kind of divided on, because, you see, there will genuinely be moments where a tense atmosphere is built up, and there will be a well-placed scare that actually gets you. But, I feel like more often than not, it's kind of just a very predictable scare that you can see coming from a mile away, paired with one of the most irritating screeches I've ever heard in my life. And other attempts, it feels more like it's doing a joke than actually trying to be scary. However, there are moments where this game can be genuinely unsettling and make you shit yourself, and there are two examples that come to mind for me. First being the assassins. You see, the assassins are this invisible enemy that attack you only in one level, and that honestly sucks because it would have been so cool if they were allowed throughout more of the levels. However, what makes them scary to me is the fact that, one, they're built out throughout the game. You don't just fight them immediately. You see little glimpses of them until they start getting more and more aggressive, and then they just straight up attack you. And secondly, they're dynamic because rather than just being a spooky monster that jumps out at you and then back in the closet, they're dynamic enemies. So you're either sitting in a corner, just waiting for them to come after you, or you're carefully clearing rooms, and you're just looking for the slightest bit of movement so that you can shoot them before they fucking get you. Obviously, they're not perfect. Like, when you go into slow motion mode, they're ultra easy to deal with. But I think this is an interesting nugget of what could be a scarier game. And the second example is the final section. You see, in the final section, it's honestly extremely tense. And that's because, firstly, there's the build-up, because you have to go to this reactor and then open up these rods to shoot that will destroy the facility. And as you're going there, you can hear all these spirits just around you, whispering and muttering, and they are very angry that you've woken them up. And then after you activate the reactor, you have to rush out as like the facility booms and breaks around you. And then you get periodically interrupted by these spirits that you can see breaking through the fabric of reality to attack you. It's an incredibly tense section, and it shows to me that you can still have a genuinely scary game that allows you to beat John Wick. And, you know, from this, there was no other follow-up. F.E.A.R 2? F.E.A.R 3? What are you talking about? There's only this. There's no other F.E.A.R. Except... oh yeah. Now, you see, F.E.A.R did actually get a bit of follow-up to it, because it had 2 expansion packs released. One of them is Perseus Mandate, and we're not going to talk about Perseus Mandate. What we are going to talk about, though, is Extraction Point. You see, F.E.A.R Extraction Point is an expansion pack that released for the original game a year after its release, and it was not developed by Monolith Studios, but rather Timegate Studios, which makes what I'm about to say all the more insane to me, because I'm not exaggerating when I say this. It is better than the base game in every single way. You have more likable characters.
Obviously.
He's dormant. When Fettel was killed, the replica's deactivated.
He's dead now.
More varied levels, replacing the office environment with locations like the subway, construction sites, and even a funeral home. And of course, even more intense combat with new weapons, enemies, and mechanics. The entire thing is just a joy to play. It's so satisfying to just bust the door down and shoot everyone in the room. Even the horror aspects are far better due to the more frightening atmosphere being paired with just way more deserved scares. Like, they're not jokes anymore. These scares actually got me and fucked me up, man. And they work way better because there's just more moments of quiet tension. And, you know, they don't play that ear-grating screech. It is just like insane to me that a DLC of this quality came from a completely different studio. And I have to tell you, if you're a fan of the base game, this is an absolute must-play. There you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. I kinda wanted to just make something for Halloween. It's
December.
Where you procrastinating fuck? And I thought this would be a cool thing to release. And, you know, I kind of saw this as an opportunity to do something fun, as well as make people aware of a game that I adore. It's so good, and it really does suck to me that beyond this point, we never really got a follow-up to it. Like, I know I made the joke earlier, but, you know, it sucks that there's no other F.E.A.R games that exist. What are you looking at? Are you staring past me? They're behind me, aren't they?
You're like free pizza at an anime convention.
Ah!